I worry as a woman, not only in solidarity with other groups, but for women as well, that what kind of language does this let in? You know, I was tweeting about it earlier today, and people said some of the most disgusting stuff about me. I mean, they were just looking at it an excuse to say something bad about me. And this, unfortunately, Mr. Davidson needs to realize that he created the opportunity for that. And so that's really, really bad, you know?
So that was Grace Randolph from the Beyond the Trailer YouTube channel, which is, I guess, pretty popular on the internet.com in that particular sphere. And she decided to do a lengthy breakdown of the whole John Davidson BAFTA Awards N-word incident. However, throughout the whole course of her little breakdown, she proved that she's absolutely disgusting in every possible way. And a perfect case in point is right there, her trying to make it about the abuse that allegedly she suffered, when in reality, she's the one going after somebody that she knows has a disability, claiming that he should not be allowed in public, even though, again, this guy's an activist who had a film made on him that sole purpose is to raise awareness of people with his disability. But instead, Grace has decided that she's actually the real victim in this. Black people in the United States of America are actually the real victim, and of course, that the United States of America is just not educated compared to separate countries, Scotland and the United Kingdom, which, by the way, she reiterates as separate countries multiple times throughout this freaking stream.
So you have a situation where you have the UK and Scotland. And again, I want to acknowledge that this man is a hero in Scotland and the UK. We don't see it the way that the people in the UK and Scotland do, and do as wonderful a job with us as he has with the UK and Scotland.
And if you don't know, Grace, Miss I'm the most educated, or Americans are less educated than over there, Scotland is a part of the United Kingdom, you absolute doof in every possible way. And basically, she goes through this whole stream while trying to blame the guy with Tourette's for the overreaction of people who know he has this disability, understands it wasn't in his control, and are still harassing the man with Tourette's. And it's absolutely embarrassing in every possible way. And it's a perfect example of the progressive stack, woke overload, and all these people just trying to make the case that being black trumps absolutely everything. And even if you're a rich and famous black celebrity, that is nothing compared to the privilege of having this disability negatively impact you throughout the whole course of your life, as long as you're also a white person. So yeah, it's disgusting in every possible way. Grace is an absolute embarrassment, and this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
But I think that he should recognize the harm that he caused and the pain that he caused, which we're going to talk about, and also condemn the word. I think that a very unfortunate thing that has happened because of this is that you have people online downplaying the use of that word, and that it's not as hurtful, and people should, really just being very dismissive of the very real and valid reaction that a number of people have to that word. And I think that deserves, again, recognition and to condemn that word, and to say that it is a big deal and that he wishes that he could control it.
So I want to be clear to everybody out there in the audience that initially, if you heard the N-word being hurled at Michael B. Jordan on this particular stage and you didn't have any context for it and you thought it was a racial attack, that is perfectly fine, acceptable, and reasonable, because again, without additional context, even though that seems rather odd at the British equivalent of the Oscars, I guess that's what you would assume based on you hearing that, again, hurled at two black individuals while they're on stage. But the moment that you found out that there was an individual there that had Tourette's, and that the crowd of this event was warned that he was prone to outbursts, and of course, you had multiple different people come out and explained that he actually had a bunch of different outbursts that were not related to black people or Michael B. Jordan or anything of the sort, this conversation was over. This conversation was kaput. It was done with, and any additional offense forgiveness or demands of an apology is exactly what it should be described as, which is abuse against a disabled person, because if you know that he has no fault in this particular action, then you are just blaming him and demanding an apology, and guess what? That is incredibly cruel. But guess what? Grace Randolph over here doesn't seem to understand that. She doesn't seem to get that, and in fact, she actually brought up during the course of this conversation that this individual might have to be arrested because, you know, they have hate speech laws in the United Kingdom, because this is what an absolute dope this woman is.
The importance of swift action. I believe very strongly, which is something that also is why I tweeted the way that I did, that whenever anybody speaks any kind of derogatory language like this, which is so hateful, it has to immediately be struck down. And Europe has the same policy when it comes to the elements of World War II. Okay? It's illegal, in fact, to say certain things in Germany. And there is, of course, such a thing as hate speech. And I think that this word that was spoken definitely qualifies for that. And so that's another thing that was so bizarre that, even if it was by accident and even if it was uncontrollable, to have something so hateful said and not have it addressed.
Now, Grace, whose entire channel is based around the idea that she's terrible at breaking down trailers, aka Beyond the Trailer, and absolutely awkward in her movie reviews, which again are among the worst on the YouTube movie review channels, let's be perfectly honest, is absolutely wrong in every possible way, on every possible level on this particular issue, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And the thing is, most of her wrongness comes from her trying to bend over backwards in order to pander to black people who, by the way, if they're offended, knowing the context, are being willfully unreasonable. Again, if this were a disabled person who hurled any kind of epithet at any other group of people, it would not be getting this attention. But since it involves a slur that is used by American blacks all the time in common conversation, but also against American blacks very uncommonly in the United States of America, for some reason, we all have to pretend that their feelings are somehow trumping reality. And it's embarrassing. It's absolutely shameful. And again, you could tell by the reactions from the people who were actually there or from the black actor that actually worked on this film that people with experience, people with knowledge, people who understand this situation, despite the fact that they have the skin color that thus makes it offensive, apparently, totally get it, totally understand it, and have broken it down time and time again.
I'm one of the actors, and I swear, I play John Davidson's lawyer. And if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. In the scene, I'm representing him because he's just got into trouble, and I'm representing him, but at the same time, he's hurling abuse at me, and it's very offensive words. Now, this is the condition, the disease of Tourette's syndrome. John cannot control what he says. In fact, that's the whole point of why we're making this film. We've made this film, I swear, is to educate people about Tourette's syndrome. And how can you say that he can't be there at the awards? This is a film about his life. This is a film about him. Absolutely, he has to be there. And absolutely, it's great that he was there. And I don't know if some of the actors there were told in advance about someone with Tourette's being there. Hopefully they would have been told, therefore prepared for that kind of stuff that happened. Regardless, John has Tourette's. Enough said.
But does that stop Grace? Does that deter her? No, absolutely not. She goes on this over 25-minute meltdown about this particular incident, again, referencing hate speech laws and how this individual should be prosecuted, talking about how people in the UK are rallying around them, and of course, she uses as an excuse for the horrible actions of black activists in the United States of America and black celebrities in the United States of America and people like her on the internet.com that Americans are somehow completely unaware of the existence of Tourette's syndrome, and therefore you can't really expect Americans to understand this because we just have no idea. The UK is so advanced. I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but here in the United States, when you think you're in a very technologically advanced society, in the UK, when it comes to understanding of Tourette's, they're basically like Star Trek in comparison to us. This is the point that Grace tries to communicate time and time again.
So you have a situation where you have the UK and Scotland who are light years ahead of the United States in terms of this discussion. And so I think it was unfair to think that we would be at the same place that the UK is in terms of how we handle this and how, there has been zero education about Tourette's here in the United States. So that was a huge issue.
When again, it is not that complicated. He has a disability. It's a neurological disability. He has tics. He has a version of this where he sometimes says words in inappropriate situations. For instance, when he received an award from the Queen of England, he ended up saying F the Queen. When he met a woman who had cancer, he ended up saying you're going to die. All sorts of inappropriate things. And by the way, throughout the whole course of this evening, if you actually listen to people who were there, who by the way, were warned about his tics by the host at the beginning of the show, he was saying things about all different kinds of people, which by the way, Grace actually acknowledges at one point in time based on the red carpet, and she says it was incumbent upon him, the person with the disability, to understand where his Tourette's was going and then get out of this situation.
As I said, he had some unfortunate incidents on the red carpet. And, like during the pre-show, I wish that he had realized what direction he was headed in at that point. Once he saw himself starting to go down that road, I wished he'd been like, then I would also say that neither of these gentlemen, Michael B. Jordan or Delroy Lindo, were born rich. They had to work so hard to build their careers and get to where they were on that stage that night. And I think the very fact, and this is why I believe, amongst many reasons, but one of the main reasons that apparently it's being reported that Michael B. Jordan's parents cried when this happened, was because it seems that no matter what these men accomplish, they can't escape this.
Holy crap, this woman is lacking all depth, all thought, all character in this particular scenario, all because she wants to pander to black people who probably don't exist in her audience, based on the idea that, oh my god, it's just so sad that a black actor who was warned prior to this about this guy with Tourette's ended up having a word hurled at him that in the movie that he was there for is in the script over and over again and repeatedly said by him. And by the way, since Michael B. Jordan plays two characters, two twin brothers, it is said from him to him in that particular movie. Oh my god, he can't possibly be expected to understand the context, because according to this woman, I guess Michael B. Jordan must be an idiot. Now, one of the funniest, unintentionally funny moments about Grace's live stream related to this is that she actually says at one point in time that the slur that was hurled by this person with Tourette's, who again, she acknowledges has no control over what he's saying, but sometimes implies that he does have control and it is his fault because she's a disingenuous cat lady, but she says the slur actually matched the people that were on stage.
Again, we didn't know this guy. We have not been educated on what's going on with Tourette's. And again, the examples here were very unfortunate, really horrible words that matched the individual who was they were inflicted upon.
Look, John Davidson got a condition. John Davidson has a disability. John Davidson can't control what he's trying to say. It's a neurological issue. It's not a psychological issue. So him saying that Michael B. Jordan is an N-word is something that he is not responsible for. But you, Grace, you saying into camera that the slur matched Michael B. Jordan is essentially you calling him the N-word with extra steps. And yes, that is fully within your control. And again, that's absolutely embarrassing in every possible way. And by the way, what makes this so cruel from Grace to imply that this guy actually intended on saying those things is that in her original tweets about this, she talked about how she was completely ignorant of how Tourette's works, always a bad sign when you're about to make commentary on it. And then she said Tourette's means no filter. So what she's still implying, despite the fact that she's been community noted to hell, is that the racism was actually in his heart. And considering a portion of the movie, which by the way is biographical, is of this individual being wrongfully arrested for his Tourette's by the police, her calling for hate speech and whatnot to be enforced in this case would be another wrongful arrest for his disability. This is all under the guise of this woman trying to be empathetic, trying to sound reasonable, when what she's doing is being incredibly cruel.
It's very difficult. I do wish that John Davidson would speak about the pain of that word and why it should not be used.
But the meltdown continues throughout the whole course of this because, again, while she doesn't want to say that he should apologize, she ends up saying that he needs to acknowledge and condemn this, aka the same thing, and in fact, even stronger terms, even though, again, this guy has acknowledged his condition. In fact, the whole reason he was there was to promote awareness about this, and it's absolutely pathetic for her to demand that this guy bend the knee to the woke black mob who is intentionally, and I want to make this clear, intentionally showing him a lack of compassion and understanding and an utter lack of grace that we often see from this community in similar types of scenarios.
This is uncontrollable on his part. We understand that, okay? But, you know, he did only have outbursts, at least during this event, when it came to women and people of color.
Again, I will reiterate, most regular, ordinary black people are not jumping on this bandwagon. They actually have lives, things to do, jobs and whatnot, so they in no way, shape, or form have the time to go after a disabled person from the United Kingdom or from Scotland who is in a completely separate country known as the United Kingdom, according to Grace over here, who, by the way, is lecturing us about our lack of education throughout the course of this whole particular video. But make no mistake about it, the people that are, and by the way, the people that are trying to be nuanced on this are absolutely terrible people, and the nuanced people are worse than the people who are completely ignorant to the condition, because again, if you know that this was out of his control and yet you're still attacking him and demanding an apology, then you are scum to the fullest. And one of the funniest things about this is that Grace, again, is somebody who tries to go beyond the trailer, beyond the superficial, and break down narratives for you guys out there in the audience, yet she tries to summarize a crucial scene in the movie, I swear, but fails miserably in her summary of that scene.
But perhaps the problem is that I don't know if a lot of people are insistent that Mr. Davidson does not need to apologize. And one of the things that's fueling that, thank you, Oasis, I'm really trying, okay, to handle this very gracefully. So there's a scene in this film, I swear, where somebody who is a parental figure in his life when he's young, Mr. Davidson's life, tells him that he should never apologize for his disorder because it's not something he can control. And, you know, people make the point, is he'd have to be apologizing nonstop if he had to apologize.
So Grace, the most ironically named person in human history, that is not the point of the scene that you're talking about. Did you even watch the scene? Did you even look it up? The point of the scene isn't that somebody with Tourette's should never apologize under any circumstances at all whatsoever. The point of the scene was that if people know that you have Tourette's and know that it's not your fault, they should grant you the grace of not expecting you to apologize for things that are outside of your control. Again, see it for yourself.
Dory kind of concert.
Sorry, Dory. Sorry, everyone.
Right, John. If you're going to visit us more often, which, you know, I hope you are, I need to speak to you about your language. We have one rule in this house, and that's if you do anything you can't help, you never, ever have to apologise for it. You know, if you're out in the street and, you know, with people who don't understand you, then fine, you know, apologise, whatever. But in this house, well, we know you can't help it. You know, well, we know you don't mean it. Well, it all means diddly squat. You don't need to apologise. Okay?
Aye, okay. Thank you.
Great.
So the scene isn't referencing everyone in the general public. It isn't referencing people who aren't aware. It's referencing people like you, Grace, people like you who are acknowledging that he has a condition that is completely out of his control, but are now trying to make him apologize, or in your particular case, condemn the language, condemn the words, which is, again, something that was outside of his control because it's evil, bad, and terrible. And again, according to you, being an American black person, a celebrity American black person, is a much bigger disability than actually having Tourette's. Again, apparently, according to Grace, reparations needs to be paid to black people in the form of handicapped people's parking passes. You know those blue spaces? You think they're for you if you're in a wheelchair? No, according to Grace, a black person needs that, and if you don't want to give it to them, you're an evil white racist, so wheel your ass in from the other side of the parking lot. Again, madness in every possible way, crazy in every possible way, and yet this woman goes on for 25 minutes with all sorts of stupid ass analogies and somehow trying to make it political, somehow trying to make it an issue about the right wing, because supposedly the right wing is going to take the fact that this guy has a medical condition that thus excuses him for saying things that he doesn't mean, because again, he's not in control of his speech in these particular moments, to then impact the world with evil white racist language, which all I have to say in response to that is shut up. Shut your stupid mouth.
The counter to that is you have to understand what a slippery slope is to allow this word under any circumstances. There are no circumstances under which this word or any word like it can be said. And I would hope that the Black community would also come forward and say that they were equally as upset as I am now if a slur against a different group was used. So that is why this is so crucial. This has to be, you must say that this is horrible immediately. Okay? Because, it's the dog whistle argument, when there are not everybody, but there are certainly a lot of people online who are defending Mr. Davidson's right to say this word because they want to say it. And that's really the problem. It's, really take a hard look at anyone who's defending Mr. Davidson and ask why.
What are you even talking about? The guy with Tourettes was making more sense than you, and again, he's involuntarily throwing out slurs every now and again. You're an absolute embarrassment, Grace. You show no grace. Again, irony to the extreme, and your whole premise, your whole little live stream is about how you have a nuanced take, when in reality, if you understand he has Tourette's, that's the end of all nuance. The only way that you could have a different take is if you're ignorant or disingenuous, and even though you don't know that Scotland is in the United Kingdom, I'm gonna go with disingenuous because you're an absolute embarrassment. And by the way, one of my favorite parts about this is that she wants this movie to not have a theatrical release because she thinks it's bad that it's going up against the Michael Jackson movie, and that's also going to be offensive to Black people.
I was also extremely, extremely concerned, okay, to see that I Swear has been set to open opposite the Michael Jackson movie. I hope that Sony Pictures Classics, who is releasing this movie, considers moving the film. I would hope, I think that I Swear wants to come from a place of positivity. And I think that it is getting very quickly co-opted by people who are not in that headspace. Mr. Davidson should be a figurehead for acceptance and understanding, not for, trying to tell people that doing things that are offensive is not a big deal.
First of all, Black people aren't seeing this movie. Let's be perfectly honest about that. The story of a disabled white person overcoming, obviously it's not interesting to them. This is one of the reasons why they're attacking this guy relentlessly on social media. But in addition to that, you pick your movie release weekend based on the competition that's around you, based on the fact that you're not expecting crossover cannibalization of your movies. And in reality, the Michael Jackson movie, which she has dubbed the blackest film of the year apparently, is not going to have a big amount of crossover with this particular film. In addition to that, she demands that they release it on digital for everyone to see because she's like, April, way too far away. I mean, she's already going to bite on a bunch of other race hoaxes by then. And again, they have to actually play in the theater first in order to be eligible for American award season. So what this woman is demanding is for them to sacrifice themselves on the altar of white guilt, which again is absolutely embarrassing. And it's really hard to imagine that this woman is able to even do this live stream, considering she's still kneeling for George Floyd from back in 2020 due to the fact that she's been overwhelmed with immense pussified white guilt, and it's absolutely embarrassing in every possible way.
And I just feel like, as I tweeted earlier today, that toxic channels who are already making some of the most offensive poster frames that you can think of Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, and using this actor, by the way, in a way I'm sure he doesn't want to be used, to further their own agenda and what they would like to do. They're trying to chip away at whether or not it's wrong to say that. And it is. It is. And, that's why I feel like Mr. Davidson needs to speak out about how wrong this word is.
And again, the performative offense that she's taking to the N-word being said by somebody with a disability is just pathetic. And this idea that we are going to use this as a way to bring the N-word back and start hurling it against black people, absurd. Asinine, ridiculous. Please, lady, calm down, take your medication, fix your face. I don't know what's going on with you. Get off stream because you're embarrassing yourself. And this should be one of the most humiliating experiences of your life because you decided to bully a disabled person that you acknowledge is disabled, even though, again, you're so ignorant about the condition, despite the fact that you're calling every other American ignorant, when most people seem to understand what's going on, except, of course, for the activist class. So please go deal with your 27 cats, get off the internet. We don't want to hear your absolute nonsense. And no, in no way, shape, or form does the filmmaker behind this or the studio behind this owe it to the Michael Jackson movie based on Michael B. Jordan being on the stage when this guy had a Tourette's-based outburst to change up their release schedule. Please, for the love of God, lady, get a hold of your life. Now, with all that being said, I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness of the Beyond the Trailer live stream that we just saw, Grace being pathetic in every possible way. Till next time.